"You're fired." Just 2 words. But those 2 words would trigger a chain of events that within hours would shake a billion-dollar empire and expose the true character of everyone in the room. And the most shocking part? The woman everyone thought was just a waitress turned out to be someone so important that the entire ballroom fell silent the moment her identity was revealed. Stay with me until the end, because this story takes a turn that nobody saw coming. The Grand Royal Hotel was hosting one of the most exclusive corporate galas of the year. The ballroom glittered with crystal chandeliers. Luxury cars lined the entrance. CEOs, investors, politicians, and media personalities filled the room. Everyone was waiting for a special guest, a guest whose arrival had been the subject of rumors for weeks. But what nobody knew was that the guest was already there. No one recognized her. Near the back of the ballroom stood a young woman named Emily. She wore a simple black server's uniform. Her hair was tied neatly behind her head. In her hands was a silver tray carrying glasses of sparkling water. To everyone in the room, she looked like an ordinary waitress. Invisible, forgettable, just another employee working the event. Emily didn't seem to mind. She moved quietly through the crowd, smiling politely and helping guests whenever they needed something. Unlike many people in the room, she wasn't interested in attention. She was interested in observing, watching, learning. And tonight, she was about to learn more about human nature than she ever expected. Across the ballroom, another woman had become the center of attention. Her name was Sophia. Sophia was the glamorous girlfriend of Daniel Harper, CEO of Harper Technologies. She was stunningly beautiful, dressed in a custom designer gown worth more than many people's annual salary. Diamonds sparkled around her neck. People laughed at her jokes, complimented her appearance, and treated her like royalty. Sophia loved every second of it. She believed she belonged above everyone else, and she made sure people knew it. As she enjoyed the admiration of the crowd, her eyes suddenly landed on Emily. At first, she paid little attention, but then she noticed something that irritated her. An elderly investor was speaking warmly with Emily. The man smiled as Emily handed him a glass of water. Emily smiled back. The exchange was brief and polite, but for some reason, it bothered Sophia. Maybe it was because the investor was one of the most influential people at the event. Maybe it was because Emily looked calm and confident. Or maybe Sophia simply couldn't tolerate anyone receiving attention she felt belonged to her. Whatever the reason, she decided to make her presence known. She marched across the ballroom, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. Several guests turned to watch. Sophia stopped directly in front of Emily. "Hey, you." Emily looked up. "Yes, ma'am?" Sophia crossed her arms. "What exactly are you doing?" Emily blinked. "Serving guests?" Sophia laughed, a cold, mocking laugh. "Obviously." She stepped closer. "I mean, why are you acting like you belong here?" Several nearby guests exchanged uncomfortable glances. Emily remained calm. "I'm just doing my job." Sophia's smile disappeared. She didn't like the answer, not because it was rude, but because it wasn't submissive. Emily hadn't looked intimidated, and that irritated her even more. "You should know your place," Sophia said. The conversation was now attracting attention from around the room. People began turning toward them. Some pulled out phones. Others simply watched. Emily lowered her eyes. "I'm sorry if I've done something wrong." Sophia smirked. "Oh, you've done plenty wrong." Emily confused. "What do you mean?" Sophia leaned forward. "People like you always forget who they're talking to." The room grew quieter. Guests sensed trouble. Emily remained respectful. "I didn't mean any disrespect." But Sophia wasn't interested in listening. She wanted to humiliate her, to remind everyone who held the power. Without warning, Sophia grabbed part of Emily's uniform and yanked. "Rip!" The sound echoed through the ballroom. Gasps erupted from every direction. Several women covered their mouths. A few men stood frozen in disbelief. Part of Emily's dress had torn. For a moment, nobody moved.
Nobody spoke. Even Sophia seemed surprised by how far she had gone. Then she smiled, a cruel smile. Maybe now you'll remember where you belong. The entire room stood in stunned silence. Emily looked down at the torn fabric. Her face showed embarrassment, pain, but not anger, not hatred, just disappointment. And that was when a deep voice suddenly cut through the silence. I think the only person who forgot their place tonight is you. The room immediately turned. Standing near the entrance was an elderly man, silver hair, impeccable navy suit, confident posture, an unmistakable presence. The moment people recognized him, expressions changed. Whispers spread rapidly, because the man standing there was Richard Sterling, one of the wealthiest businessmen in the world, a billionaire whose companies operated in dozens of countries, a man whose name carried enormous influence. Richard walked slowly across the ballroom. The crowd parted for him. Nobody dared stop him. When he reached Emily, he removed his suit jacket and gently placed it over her shoulders. His voice softened. "Are you all right?" Emily nodded. "I'm fine." Richard smiled. Then he turned towards Sophia. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Sophia suddenly looked nervous. "Mr. Sterling." For the first time all evening, she appeared uncertain. Richard didn't respond immediately. Instead, he looked around the ballroom. Then he asked a question. "Does anyone here know who this young woman is?" Nobody answered. Most people shook their heads. Richard smiled. "Then allow me to introduce her." The room became completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Richard placed a hand on Emily's shoulder. "This young woman is my granddaughter." The ballroom exploded with shock. "What? No way! His granddaughter?" People stared at Emily in disbelief. Sophia's face turned pale. Daniel Harper nearly dropped his drink. But Richard wasn't finished. Not even close. He looked around the room once more. "And next month, she will become chairwoman of Sterling Global." Silence. Pure silence. The kind of silence that only follows a life-changing revelation. Sterling Global was worth hundreds of billions of dollars. Its influence reached nearly every major industry. The future leader of that empire was standing among them all night, dressed like a waitress, watching, learning, observing. Sophia's knees nearly buckled. This can't be real." Richard looked directly at her. "Oh, it's very real." He then addressed the room. "For the past year, Emily has been working anonymously in different companies and industries. Restaurants, hotels, retail stores, charities, customer service centers." A murmur spread through the crowd. Richard continued. "She wanted to understand how ordinary people are treated. She wanted to learn leadership from the ground up. And tonight, she learned something valuable." His eyes shifted towards Sophia. "She learned exactly who deserves respect." Sophia looked as though she might collapse. Everything that happened tonight traced back to a single choice. One moment of cruelty, one moment of arrogance, one moment when she believed another human being was beneath her. Slowly, she turned toward Emily. Tears streamed down her face. "I'm sorry." The room watched closely, waiting. Emily studied her for several seconds. Then she spoke quietly. "Are you sorry because of what you did?" Sophia nodded. "Yes." Emily shook her head gently. "No." Sophia confused. Emily continued. "You're sorry because now you know who I am." The words hit like a hammer. The room became silent once more. Emily took a slow breath. "If I had really been a waitress," she paused, "would you still be apologizing?" Sophia couldn't answer, because everyone knew the truth. The answer was no. Emily looked around the ballroom, at the executives, the investors, the celebrities, the powerful people. Then she smiled sadly. The value of a person doesn't come from their title. It doesn't come from their wealth. It doesn't come from their status. It comes from their character. Nobody spoke, because nobody could argue with her. Richard looked at his granddaughter with pride. At that moment, he knew she was ready, not because she would inherit a business empire, but because she understood something many powerful people never learn. Real leadership begins with respect. Respect for everyone, especially those who appear to have no power. That night, Emily's identity shocked everyone, but Sophia's actions revealed something far more important: her true character. And unlike a torn dress, some reputations can never be repaired.